what did you make of what Raya had to say? Have Sunderland established a blueprint for what to do against Arsenal?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I think there is an element of physicality when you play against Arsenal, which you do have to sort of reach. But then also you have to take your moments. And I think for Sunderland themselves, the way that they start the season doing so well in the league, the belief that they have with their fans in the stadium as well, and in the game itself, they're just super competitive. I think David Raya made the point, you know, they've come up from the Championship and so on. But if you look at most of that team, most of them weren't in the campaign last season from the Championship. So it's just new to them. But this is how they're going to play. They're going to go toe-to-toe with absolutely anybody. They're not going to try and outpass you. You know, they're not necessarily just going to shell it long all the time. But you know that if you're going to be getting points from them, you're going to have to earn the right to do that. And I think Arsenal basically felt that as of other teams in recent weeks. You know, this is a Sunderland team that beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge not too long ago as well. But I think to sort of add on to what he was saying, you know, that defensive side of things for Arsenal, I think that love for defending. Once upon a time in sort of my career, you'd hear that in Italy when you'd see goalkeepers high-fiving defenders when they make a tackle and so on. But, you know, for those guys, that's how they do it. They're good defenders individually and they're committed to defending as a collective, and that is from front to back. And that's what makes Arsenal really soft. So in some ways, it was a surprise to see them concede 2 goals away at Sunderland, not least of all because the 2 goals essentially were quite simple. There's somebody missing an assignment from a throw-in, so Dan Ballard basically pushes his way through and scores. And then for the second goal, is it the goalkeeper's ball? Is it the defender's ball? No, it's Brian Broby's ball because he's committed and thrown himself at it. And those are the sort of things which we don't really see Arsenal give up very often. So, yeah, it's a nice reminder for them, but they're still a very strong defensive unit.
Yeah, he threw himself at it, and the man doing the interview wasn't quite as committed, was he, the goalkeeper? if we're being honest about it.
Right.
He came out a little hesitant because he knew there was going to be physical contact. Had he really thrown himself out there and outstretched his arms to punch it, he may have just have got there before the attacker and put it in the back of the net. Look, is this ESPN FC finding the crack in the Arsenal? Notice how I said that as if it's not me. Is this the FC way of finding the crack in Arsenal? This is how you get...
Yeah.
Arsenal can be physical against every team. We've talked about it. This is part of their game that they are equipped to deal with, or should be. They have some of the biggest, most physical players in the Premier League. Here's the news for you. If you're the bulk of the Premier League teams and you try and go toe-to-toe with Arsenal in a game of football, you're probably going to lose. Or you're going to come out second best. So you have to find a different way. Long balls, throw-ins, getting it forward quicker, squeezing them in, crosses into the box, being a bit more physical. You're going to have to use all of that because if you try and take them on in a head-to-head game, they're going to get the better of you. So Sunderland have been very good at that. They've been very good when they've come up to the Premier League about understanding what works for them. The Chelsea game was a classic example. They sat in for long periods of the game and defended stoutly and got the result. So, yeah, this is just, you know, one for Arsenal that got away. But, you know, if you think you can just roll this Arsenal team over and that's their weak point, I would disagree with that.
Right, that is the problem, isn't it, Gab? If this is the blueprint to get the better of this Arsenal defence, how many other teams in the Premier League can play this way? Fulham aren't playing this way.
No, look, I mean, this was the right way for Sunderland to approach it. But let's not get carried away here. Those goals featured 2, I think, massive individual errors from 2 players who happen to have been 2 of Arsenal's best players this season, Declan Rice and Gabriel. If you want to give some blame to Raya as well, sure. But, you know, Declan Rice misjudges the flight of the ball in the first one, and Gabriel gets bullied by Brian Broby, one of the few players who probably is heavier than he is. These guys don't make many mistakes. Occasionally, even the very best make individual errors. It happened. Move on. If these guys make individual errors like this next week too and the week after, sure, then we can talk about maybe things not working in the system, or we can talk about